Got to make sure it's clean. Can't have it dirty. Got to make sure of that, just in case.
Okay. All right, we are on. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the September 5th Equity Committee meeting. September's already flying by. All right. I'm going to turn it over to you, Dr. Chapman. Take it away.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. McKittrick. We do have minutes from our January 5th meeting if you want to peruse those. Thank you, Sydney, for minutes. And if there are no corrections or anything we might have missed, I am going to ask Dr. Robinson to share with us his thoughts around the work of equity as we've discussed over the past several weeks.
Thank you, Dr. Chapman. Good afternoon to everyone. Kind of wish that I would have, in the previous meeting, been able to share some of those things that came up. We are in the process of excitingly working on our Blueprint for Excellence, which is our strategic plan. And within that strategic plan, you will see how equity will take an active role in each of the four cornerstones that we will have within the strategic plan. So we have academic achievement, we have operational excellence, we have the piece on culture and climate, which is around safety and sense of belonging, and our other cornerstone, drawing a blank here, family partnerships and community engagement. So you will see, as we're working on this, the team will be working next Tuesday on the completion of each of the cornerstones with the strategies that go under each one of those. We're also going to be doing a survey to our families, to our partners, to our internal and external stakeholders, our principals, our teachers. Anyone who works in the school district will be able to complete the survey to provide us with information, feedback, thoughts, comments that we can use around each of those four cornerstones, and to help us in building the scorecard for the strategic plan that will eventually end up on our website, where you can see the progress that the district is making. We're gonna create our KPIs, which are key performance indicators, that we can actually see progress that's being made. We don't currently have a strategic plan, so from that, we are going to create the academic focus plan that's going to be extracted from that strategic plan. And with that, you're going to see the strategies that we want. So, for example, in the previous meeting, they were talking about literacy and the lack of students being able to really comprehend what is going on in some of our classrooms, especially when they're taking the Ohio State test. They're not able to perform. And literacy has to also be like equity. It has to be the bedrock of everything that we do. It can't be the all, but it has to be the all, in the sense that we must focus on equitable opportunities and experiences and exposure for our scholars pre-K-12. It doesn't matter which school they're in, which pathway in high school they might be a part of. It has to be something that everybody is working on, and it has to be deliberate. Our district is in a phase, if you will, around turnaround work right now. We are 2 stars. That's a D. and we've been there for a while. But we didn't get there overnight, and we're not going to get there we're not going to change overnight. But we're going to have to do some things that are going to help move us along more expeditiously. You will see in the Blueprint for Excellence, you'll see where we're talking about professional development. It can't be the same professional development for every teacher each time. It has to be something that's applicable to what they need in order to move the instruction in their building. We started today with our data reviews that we're doing with our schools, and we had 2 awesome data reviews this morning where 2 of our principals really gave great insight into their schools. They talked about strategies that they're using. They also talked about ways in which we as central office can be more of a support to them and what they need. It was not about us telling them what we want them to do, which is a change. We are adopting unofficially, but we are using the data-wise school improvement process, which is nothing new. It's not brand new. This has been, data-wise, has been out for several years. But we are using that as our in school improvement, as our improvement process. But schools don't improve until the district improves, meaning that we have to change how we do what we do at this level, because what we do here is impacting what schools are doing or not doing. So Tuesday, the team is going to be meeting, which we have shifted from being senior cabinet to being a think tank. And that's where we will problem solve. We will invite our principals from time to time to come and be a part of those meetings around various topics so that they can help us think through some of the things that we're saying we think you should be doing or a part of. But we want the principals to actually, and our school leaders, our deans, to actually have a part in that, our teachers to have a part in that. And so from time to time, depending upon those topics, our teachers will be engaged in the strategic plan. In any way that they would like to be. They can either come, the team will be creating a calendar of dates over the next 3 weeks that we will be inviting the public to come in. They can either do it by survey or they can actually come in and be engaged in these meetings around the 4 cornerstones, giving their thoughts, ideas, suggestions, recommendations, whatever they may feel. And we're going to take all that information and we're going to chart all of it. And then we're going to go back to think tank to look at what the public is saying, what our constituents are telling us that they feel, how they feel and what they feel around what we're actually wanting to do with the strategic plan. It's not going to be a document that we want it very short because we want it to be something that schools are going to use, that the district is going to use. And it's going to be fluid, so it may change as we go through the process. But we have to use our data to determine which KPIs we're going to actually put in the plan. And then once we determine that this is what we're going to do, now we have to do the work of doing it. To your point, Ms. Jackson, that you were saying in the last meeting, but to your point, we did these data reviews. We're doing them now, right? So we get this data. We're charting every school and what each school is saying when it comes in. When we go back to think tank, now that all of that information helps to determine what type and level of work we now need to do with our schools. That is going to require everyone that touches a school, meaning no matter what department they're coming from, they all have to be a part of the process. We're all going into schools and really examine what instruction looks like. So when you look at data-wise, around step 4 and 5 is where we're looking at and examining the instructional practices that are happening in classrooms. But there are things that we need to do before we get to that level, right? But that means that we have to engage our principals, our teachers. They have to be a part of this process. And data-wise, as a former data-wise principal, the hardest part is releasing the control and allowing them to be a part of that process, of the decision-making, of saying, you know, you said we need to be doing X, Y, Z. It's not working for me, and I'm gonna tell you why it's not working for my kids. We need to be able to hear that here at this level and then help problem solve what is needed in order to move the instructional needle. We can't, you said it very eloquently, we can't continue to keep doing the same thing and we're expecting to get different results. It's just it's just insanity. And when we fail to really delve into the data, and that's what we want principals to do, because the question I'm asking, how many of these students do you need in your building so that you can move your building from here to here? How many do you know how many that you need? And in each of the 4 core content areas, do you know who those students are? I know you need to move 14%. Who makes up the 14% or the 20%? But that is a different level of work for some of our principals, and I don't have any hesitations or reservation in whether or not they can do it. I do believe, we had 2 rock stars today that I was extremely impressed with. I won't call their names, but I was extremely impressed with what they did this morning. They knew their schools. They knew the data. They could tell you who these kids are. They knew the strategies that were being implemented, but there were things that we now need to do differently here to help support them. There are things that they're asking for that they need in order to be successful in their building that maybe everybody isn't doing. So we have to look at how we differentiate the support. So from the meeting next Tuesday, where Think Tank is going to get together, we're looking at the creation of our coherence framework, which is going to be that northern star for us to help guide the work that we're doing, right? But in the center of that framework is the instructional core. We need to be looking at the types and levels of tasks that teachers are assigning to our scholars. We need to be looking at the types and levels of questions that they're being asked when we look at Webb's depth of knowledge. But that comes with a level of professional development that we need to provide to school leaders and to teachers, as well as to people who work in central office, because they too need to understand when we go into classrooms and the question is asked, what did you think about the lesson? I thought it was good. What's so good about it? Specifically, which strategies did you denote that the teacher was using that really was helping to engage students, and at what level? And then how are we training our kids to be able to question the teacher in a respectful way, but from a content perspective, they should be able to ask questions, high-level questions of the teacher and of each other. But that's a skill that we have to show and train our teachers and our school leaders on so that that happens with the kids. Literacy, I know that we're doing I'm drawing a blank now. What is the name? Letters, which I'm excited that our district, even before I got here, chose letters, which is one of the best strategies that we could have chosen to help promote literacy. But we're doing a lot at the foundational level, which we should. But the other part is we need to now engage those that are already in high school who are struggling, because what we don't want to do is produce, graduates who still struggle with being able to adequately read. There are going to be things that they're going to need when they leave high school, that if they cannot read, meaning that they can't comprehend, if they're not able to handle high complex tasks, that's going to be a problem. So it's not just whether or not they go to college, because we aren't training them just to go to college. We're training them to be college and career ready. And that means whatever they may want to do post high school graduation. And as we look at the work that we're doing, yes, we're moving at a much faster pace to complete our strategic plan. There are no rules that really say how long it really takes, but generally it will take a year. But we're doing ours in half of a year. But we're going to come back at the end of the year, reassess, revisit our strategic plan, and looking at our KPIs to determine, are these KPIs that we were able to really realistically meet? Because if not, then we can always change that. But we do want to challenge our schools to do more, to reach for the stars. You may land on the moon, but reach for the stars. And at the end of the day, this is a lot of our principals and teachers have been engaged in a lot of this work already. What we're doing is putting some systems and structures in place to help bring all of the great things that I walked in the door and found being done. We're now putting it in a plan that we will, at the end of the day, agree upon, that we will use to help guide our work from here on out. The work of equity is complex, and it really challenges all of us to think differently about how we do what we do. Every school doesn't need the same thing, right? There are some commonalities and some systemic things that we want to do to make sure that all of our schools are doing certain things, the same. But then we have to also look at, there are things that some schools need that another school does not. And that's a whole different level of work, because with that conversation also could be included in budget. And if we are talking about the possibility of looking at student-based budgeting, equity plays a huge role in how monies are distributed and what it's used for based on the needs of that particular school.
Thank you, Dr. Robinson. And what I did like about the data review with the one school I was able to attend today was it wasn't just about the numbers. There was that aspect of humanizing the data that we talk about a lot in our work. And so I think that that gives us real opportunity to understand the needs of our students beyond academic alone, but all the other things that support academics, like resource distribution, and whether we're thinking equitably about the resources that schools need. There was some discussion about which curriculum best supported intervention for readers around phonetic awareness and phonics, and whether those kinds of changes could be made. So I think that presents a real opportunity when we can have those discussions beyond academics, where we're really humanizing the information. So thank you for that. I do have your vision in my mind of a graphic where the instructional core is at the center, but it is surrounded by equity. And I did write that down in one of our meetings, so I got my little scribble
I
here
found
from that.
I found the paper that I had written it down on.
All right. When we came together in June, I shared with the committee that our core team would be presenting at a national conference, Reimagining Education Summer Institute at Columbia University. And so even though we have this huge district-wide 33-member cross-functional advisory committee, we have a core team, and they are here with me today, and we wanted to just share some takeaways from that conference, which took place in July at Columbia. We got rave reviews, but more important, there were some key takeaways for us that will guide our work this year. And you have that handout there. And I think that they will become a part of the strategies we will see unfold in the blueprint for excellence that Dr. Robertson is talking about related to the strategic plan. So one of them is administrator and leader engagement and culturally responsive leadership practices. And so one of the things we've started to do this year in our work, and will continue next year, is to really help our principals and administrators unpack their evaluation system, which looks at equity standards and understanding what that means. And I'm going to let Dr. Glover talk about that. And I don't know, Dr. Robinson, if you've met Dr. Glover yet, because she's not here with us often.
I have not.
Good evening. Nice to meet you. So when we look at the OPES 2.0 standards, the difference between OPES 1.0 and 2.0, I think the larger one really speaks to the standard around culture responsive teaching and equity. And when you think, going back to the conversation you were having, when you're thinking about how the alignment of the district goes, so you think about the school improvement process that speaks to OPES or your building plan, then it speaks to what's happening in the classroom. And so those equity standards really is the anchor, if you will, to how leaders will impact change in their buildings. So when we went to Resi and we presented, we focused specifically on OPES. What we found is that you won't have a lot of schools across the country who have standards that are specific to culture responsive teaching and equity in terms of leadership. There are some larger districts that are doing that work, but we noticed that that wasn't very likely in our session. And within those standards, it even talks about how you're defying when harm is happening. And so some of our conversations around even what our training looks like is what is actually happening in a school, right? How do we use the scenarios, or how do we use the calls that we receive as a result of what's happening as a way to now pivot into learning opportunities? And so we've even talked about how our even training format and delivery might need to change so that is more, I want to use the correct word in this space, so it's more like the instructional strategies that you said we need to understand that's happening in the classroom. If we are expecting educators to do certain things, that we should be modeling what we're asking them to do. And so we're even thinking about, like, how does our delivery look more, I guess, aligned to a liberatory framework? So we're thinking beyond even, thriving, going from thriving, surviving to thriving from a liberation mindset. And I'll pivot away, but we just wanted to make sure that we were thinking a little more intentionally around the difference between the supports of a leader, especially if you haven't had experiences in working in equity, right? And so now here you are walking into your building, expected to do this work, and you may not even have those experiences. And I think we need to be really mindful of that and understand what that can mean from different points and people having different journeys. And so I think that was kind of where we took our conversation with that.
Thank you, Dr. Glover. And to Dr. Robinson's point, professional development is one of those other focused areas, right? And so we know we have to have some deep learning because there could be a lack of experience or understanding about what equity truly means, and not just on a personal level, but what it means for your building, for your community, for your staff, for your families, for the resources that you are in charge of. And so we're thinking about what a system of professional development would look like through an equity lens. And so that's one of our charges for this coming year. I have Dreama Whitfield, the amazing Dreama Whitfield here, because Dreama's work in amplifying scholar voice is a core tenet of equity work. And so we consider Dreama, even though not yet located within our division, we consider Dreama our sister colleague and core team member. So I'll let Dreama talk about Scholar Voice.
Good evening, everyone. So one of the things that we're going to do with Scholar Voice this school year is we're going to make sure that all of our students, no matter what school you go to, have a seat at the table in terms of being a Scholar Board member. I reached out to all the principals today. They know that that their students, that each school needs to have a student. So we're going to be adding 2 more students to our Scholar Board. They'll be coming along, and so I'll give you more information about that later. One of the things that we did learn at Resi is in terms of Scholar Voice, we are like leading the nation in the work that we are doing. And we want to continue to build on our Scholar Voice. Dr. Robinson will have his own advisory team of students who will meet with him periodically during the school year. They will receive similar training as our Scholar Board students. So we're going to try and develop as many leaders as possible. Also, one of the things that we're going to do is we are going to have our own DEI student scholarship team. And what they're going to do is they're going to receive specialized training from Dr. Glover. We're going to partner. And then what they're going to do is they're going to go out and they're going to be able to present to their peers. And there may be some things that are happening in the community that they want to present about, or a PBL, a problem that they want to solve in our school district or in our community. So they're going to get that specialized training so that they will be able to do that. And that will mirror the work that we're doing with the mayor's leadership team. Our students, 75% of the students, I think there are 35 students on the team, 75% of those students will come from Akron Public Schools. They are going to identify a challenge in our city. They're going to try and solve that challenge. They're going to be presenting to city council and other people, other leaders in our district. So we want to mirror that work that we're doing in the city inside of our schools in our district as well.
And so just moving right along, thank you, Dreama. We have one of the things we did early on in this work of equity in the district was to create the DEI learning specialist role, and you all were a part of that. And so when Dr. Glover exited and now serves in a different capacity for us as an administrative specialist, Wilma stepped into that role, and her function, she's going to talk some more about this whole idea of the constant curation of resources and research and staying on top of best practices and knowledge of what is happening at the state legislative level.
Yes. So along with that, you guys, I'm sorry. Along with that, you guys have a handout that looks like this. And this is talking about our ERGs. And so I'm going to briefly cover that. And our ERGs are our employee resource groups, and this year we now have a total of, I think, 3. Mm-hmm. And as you can see in the middle of their key performance in 1 year, they are to have at least 1 social event and community service events 1 year, and then senior staff sponsors and supporters. And so we recently had our APS Pride March downtown Akron. I think it was last weekend. Has a huge turnout for that. And a lot of our employees were there. They had the table going, and they were, passing out things for Akron Public Schools, representing Akron Public Schools and supporting Akron Public Schools. And it was just an amazing event. And as you can see, some of the photos are there from that event. Also, what I wanted to share with you with those expanded access to our resources for all staff groups, they are totally led by all our employees. They're not any outside people, and what they do is they help to recruit other employees into our employee resource groups, into our district. They organize resources and tools for the use with our scholars and our staff people, families, and community, and they address some of our issues to respond to the areas identified as opportunities for growth by staff. Right now, our resource groups are, Akron Educators for Social Justice, of course, our APS Pride, and then our new and existing employees Unite. So those groups are leading a lot of the employee things that we have here in the district, and I'm excited about joining them. This was my first year being a part of that, so I'm excited about all of the groups that we have. And along with that, I work with our 33-member Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Advisory Committee. We're actually just now getting our dates. I got those dates solidified. I can give you those dates. I didn't make a handout for that, but if you want to know what our meeting dates are, they're once every other month, 5 hours from 8:30 to 1:30, and they're held here on the second floor in room 211 and 212. The first date will be October 11th. The second date is December 13th. Third date is February 21st. The fourth date is April 18th. And then the final fifth day is June 5th. So you guys are welcome to join us if you're interested. 5 hours, yes.
Well, and one of the reason why they act as both our monitoring mechanism, but then also everybody's at a different place in their understanding and their journey. And so we have to also infuse the time with some learning, because they're a PLC. Yes.
It's a good question.
There is food.
Yes.
But the time is really spent on the work of the plan. And I think it will be more critical now that we'll have a strategic plan that guides our district. What comes out of the committee then will align and support those cornerstones. And so we want to be sure that we're representing everyone across the district, but then also being strategic in our implementation.
I think that's great. Is it possible to get like maybe an email of your meeting dates and times?
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you.
And out of those 33, I think we have almost every area, elementary, secondary, middle, I think every department in this building. I think maybe one we're still working on trying to get one, somebody recommended from that department. I forget which department it was. We talked about that earlier.
Operations.
Yeah. So we pretty much have everybody represented in the meetings out of the 33. And I think that's really good, because we struggled last year because of some of our dates kind of bumped head with other things that were going on in the district. And so this year we made certain that there wasn't anything on the calendar that could kind of interfere with the meeting, so that we can continue to meet. Any questions on that? Thank you.
So I just wanted to share that already to date, we have interacted with some 400, and I have a number here, 492 staff persons across 6 schools, and custodian, maintenance, and child nutrition divisions. And when we talk about ensuring that all staff groups have access to resources, one of the glaring inequities, and I do feel free to say that, one of the glaring inequities that came out was the opportunities afforded to non-instructional staff. And so paying attention to the opportunities afforded our maintenance, custodial, carpentry, skilled trades, laborers, in their ongoing and continuous learning. Child nutrition staff who may desire to be a part of an after-school initiative is something that I know we talked about last Tuesday in our think tank meeting, how we create those opportunities for folks to share their skills and talents with scholars that they may want to serve. And so we want to be sure that we're not just paying attention to instruction only, but recognizing that there are many other staff groups, and we consider them educators of some sort, right? And so we want to be able to support them in their access to resources that further their own learning and development. And then finally, I'm just going to say, how we evaluate equity work in our district is really important. I'm excited that data-wise, as a process and a problem of practice process, is coming forward with Dr. Robinson, because we want to be data-rich, but we want to be data-smart. And it's important to have the KPIs, but it's important that they make sense for the work that we're doing. And, you know, we've talked for some time now about data dashboards and having access to data people. And I've had that conversation with Dr. Robinson as well. So I'm excited that that kind of information is coming forward. Sydney, I wanted you to see this nice colorful handout here. We have, as a result of last year's work, made some changes to what we deliver in terms of equity dialogues in the district. And part of that change is around how we're defining what DEI means. And you can see here on that second page, and you'll see that perspectives, experiences, culture, and community are what our employees tell us diversity should mean in APS. So this didn't come from us. This came from those that we are in conversation with on a regular basis. And so we use this then as a guide to think about our hiring practices, how we support our staff, how we engage with our community, our culture, sense of belonging, the cornerstone that Dr. Robinson spoke about. This is what our staff have said equity means in our district. And so when we talk about how we empower our scholars, our staff, our families, the rigor that Dr. Robinson is referencing in our instructional core, resource distribution, all of these, the opportunities we afford folks and access, these are the things we should be thinking about across the district. So says our staff, not Carla, but our staff. And then inclusion, this is what folks have said. And you've heard me say before last year that we had 3 bullets: seen, heard, and valued. As we continue to engage folks in conversation, we've added respected, and engaged. And so we wanted you to see that. And then our pride and joy rests in the way that we pay attention to the many identities that people hold in our district, and how we unpack what it means to hold values around those identities, how we explain and understand the power dynamics associated within them, the experiences that people have, and the assumptions that we hold. And so just wanted to give you just a little teaser. We have facilitated 2 hours worth of conversation on those 4 slides, believe it or not, because when you're unpacking how individuals show up in the room, right, you get to a deeper level of understanding and awareness. So just wanted to make you aware that lots of work going on, excited for the connection to the upcoming Blueprint for Excellence and the strategic plan, and just looking forward to the new year. Questions, comments, team.
I have a quick question. And how many people are doing this work?
Well, here we are. we do we do have we have great reach.
I'm always making a comment on the mic, off the mic. It's just great work. Every time I sit in this committee and you guys report out, it's just so inspiring, and it's just like, yes, let's get to it. And you guys have been getting to it. So when I say let's get to it, it's like, okay, what do we need to do? How can we come alongside you? Because it's just great work. I've seen up close and personal the wonderful things you're doing, Dreaming, with the young people and that student voice and them being empowered. And just every time you all speak out about, the initiatives and what really equity is about and how we're really trying to lean into it in a very authentic way, not just because it's a cute little DEI, diverse. We're not just saying words, but it's very clear that you guys are doing the work, and I'm just so happy about that. And I'm happy to learn and grow in it as well, because I recognize my limited knowledge and the understanding. And so I want to thank you, Ms. Chapman, for everything you put together and that you're exposing me to personally, and allowing me to be on this journey as well of growth, because this is really great work that you all are doing. And like I said, it's inspiring and it's valued. It's very much needed. It's very much needed. So I just want to thank you all, because 4 people doing all this work,
And when we
salute.
talk about, from the instructional policy committee meeting, moving our kids academically, that can't happen if they're coming into buildings where people don't understand who they are and the experiences they're bringing, and creating a culture where those kids feel respected and heard and seen and all. So it starts with that, because we can't get our kids where they need to be without that. So thank you always for the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Also, I think it's really great how you mentioned about the other support staff, because it's all touch points. It's like at church when they say, excuse this, you got raggedy ushers that's mean and rude. You don't want to come back. Understand me? And so even though the usher's not the preacher, they're not the mother, but that was my first point of contact. And so it makes me feel away the whole time that I'm in this building, right? And so it's the same with the cafeteria workers, the maintenance, the custodian. Everyone is a touch point to these young people's lives. And so the more empowered they are, the more training they receive to grow themselves, or even to be able to interact with our learners and feeling comfortable with those interactions, then they can even inform those who don't have those interactions with our learners of what the issues are. And so I think that's good, too. That's one of those blind spots that
Because then they're included, right?
Yes.
And the inclusion, everybody feels, then that spreads with their interactions with the kids, so.
Yeah, the possibility.
Nothing in isolation, right?
I found that
Your mic.
tend to talk more than other groups. They feel liberated. I really believe that. There's an expectation of more from our support staff, and you can clearly hear and feel that they are having some experiences that I think we really need to pay attention to.
Yeah, and I've said to Wilma several times that the conversation with our maintenance, custodial, skilled trades staff was, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I couldn't stop talking about it. Out of several of those sessions came folks who said, I want to be on the training team. How can I be a part of facilitating these kinds of conversations? And I think that that's where culture starts to shift and change. Yeah.
On that day, they felt that they were being seen, valued, and heard, because they had never had a professional development at that level before. And they were so thankful that, as a matter of fact, before we got out of there, they asked us, well, when is the next one? So it made us really feel good about presenting to them and giving them that opportunity, that little red circle there, just that opportunity on that day to have a conversation with us about some of their concerns and things that they would like to see differently as it relates to what they do, and not necessarily anything that takes place in the classroom, but around that classroom. Yeah.
And we also had, under the instruction of Dr. Chapman, we had a professional video made where our scholars are telling their stories and sharing their voices, and we use that as a part of DEI training. And with permission from Dr. Robinson, I will share that video with you all. We did it with one school already, and it was pretty transformative once they heard the scholars' stories and what they go through and what their lives are like and what they need from teachers. So it's pretty insightful.
Thank you all for coming. Let's forget the mic part. And honestly, thank you so much for all the work that you continue to do. Thank you. And that'll wrap it up for us. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Oh, man.